Hello everyone and welcome to the outside world. I don't make a habit of filming out and about, normally because I don't really have any friends. But today I'm joined with somebody who I've paid a lot of money to help fill that role for me. So we're currently in Diggers, better known as the Athletic Arms. It's an institution in Edinburgh. Many people that are fans of their whiskey in Edinburgh come here because it's really fucking cheap and there's a lot on the shelves. We're going to be trying out some stuff today. But first, I want to introduce my guest. Some of you may know him from the beer tubing world. He has one of the most obsessively categorized beer menus on the entirety of the YouTube sphere, full stop. And I've dragged him along to the middle of nowhere to drink some cask ale and some whiskey with me. And we also have pies, so that stuck to the plate. That was nearly a disaster. So this is a shit show. I've done what else I was expecting from this right now. We're in a pub. We're outside. What more could you? Let's get James in here. Let's do this. Is it on? Okay. Cool. Grand. Right. Cool. Right. Hello everyone, this is James. Do you want to tell the folks a little bit about yourself?
Well, Scottish obviously, from Stirling originally, now live in Sweden. Started a hobby back in 2013, reviewing beer on YouTube just because I thought it was a unique idea. Found out it wasn't, there was an awesome community behind it, and then the hobby got out of hand and now there are 3,200 reviews roughly. So yeah,
cool. How's your French?
Not that great.
Excellent, cool, sweet. There's a reason I asked that, but we might get into that a little bit later on. So James lives in Edinburgh at the minute, and we kind of pre-arranged this a while ago. Part of the reason why we came to Diggers was because they've got some really lovely back rooms which are nice and private and quiet. We thought would be a really great filming space, and the book's out tonight. At the same night where half of Edinburgh seems to be shut, it's a really weird situation. So we're just kind of on a table, making a bit of a scene of ourselves. Bar staff, I'm sure, are kind of like, what are these chuckle fucks doing? But hey, they've probably seen worse in here.
That's it, yeah.
So we've had a bit of an adventure. There's a live stream over on James's channel, and we might do something else a little bit later on if we can be bothered. If not, to hell with it, this is it. So I thought I'd bring him along, and we're going to try out an 80 shilling. And I've also got a very nice whiskey, which, if you've read the title, you probably know what's coming. This is something a little bit exciting. Are you excited?
I'm curious. I'm curious and excited.
Are you excited? I'm curious. Okay, right, cool, yeah. Again, if I had a penny.
I think we're being very Scottish today, so we've got steak pies.
Yeah, well, he's got a steak pie. I went with curry pie.
Okay. Well, I'm more Scottish then, obviously.
Yeah, well.
We've got a Scotch ale, which is the Diggers 80 shilling, and then we also have this guy, which is
This is the Ardbeg Grooves. This is one of their committee releases. And if I get anything wrong about what I say about this, then there will be a cut in here where I correct myself.
yeah.
Give myself a little bit of flex with that, just in case I turn it's been known to happen that I make a complete idiot of myself from time to time.
That's your channel's all about being a sarcastic bastard. That's
Exactly.
why I love it.
Yes. That is basically apparently how I am viewed in the booze community.
But a very knowledgeable sarcastic bastard.
Well, I mean, I'm good for keys if nothing else, but that's another story again. Cool. So, where do you want to start? I mean, you're the guest here. I've dragged you out into the sticks. So
Well, we should start. I think we should start off. So, we had a bit of an adventure today. The plan was to go to the Wee Vault and film some tasting there.
Oh yeah, we had a plan. I forgot about that.
Yeah, we had a plan, but our plan really went to shit.
Man, the wheels fell off this wagon something fierce. They really
very quickly,
did.
yeah. So we met at Haymarket. We were going to go to the Wee Vault and do a tasting there, but no in-house tastings. Then
Restrictions are back.
Yeah. So where did we go after? We went to the Hanging Bat after that.
We did.
And we did a stream there. What we were going to do was go there and do some tastings of their own beer. I was going to do an out and about video. Unfortunately, they didn't have any of their own beer on, so we didn't do that. So we did a wee stream instead and just chatted to people for a little bit. It was a very nice stout though.
Yeah, you know, it was a nice wee. Actually, we had a lot of dark beers there, and they were all delightful. So
nice,
yeah, wasn't too convinced with your chocolate orange one, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I wasn't too convinced.
But other than that,
and then we were going to go to. We went to the Salt Horse, which was nice. We probably should have filmed in there. Actually.
we probably should have been, because that was actually genuinely delightful. I've had situations in the past where I've gone into like little bars, and you just get chatting to somebody, and then before you know it, the entire bar is in on the conversation, and everyone's just kind of like riffing off each other. It helps that the Salt Bar is what, about the size of a crappy living room, for want of a better way of putting it. It's tiny in there. It is small, as with a lot of Edinburgh places. It's just cramped. Fantastic beer selection. We ended up having I was going to say King's Barnes then. Whiskey brain on. New Barnes. I had the session IPA. You had the
Pilsner.
I had the Pilsner.
You had the Pilsner, and I had a Mosaic table beer.
I'm going to hire you as my secretary. You're better at this than I am. Okay, grand. And then we came away with some beers as well.
Then we were going to, but then we were going to go to. We agreed that we wanted to do a film. The film was going to be for my channel, and that was going to be in Brauhaus. We were going to do Schlenkerla and a smoky whiskey to kind of have a nice crossover. But we went there and it was shut. So
yeah. If you have a business and you're closing, literally just put on your Facebook, "We shut." That's all I need. That's all I need to know. Just "we shut." You can put "we shit." I'll get it. It's fine. Just something to say. We ain't open.
now that we've said that, they will have done that. We've just not moved.
And we just will have missed it or something. They'll be like, "Excuse me, I think you'll find that we did say we are closed," and much more eloquently. Salt. So yeah, a little bit gutted. So I dragged you out into the middle of Gorgie Del Rye border to have some whiskey and some beer. So that is what we are up to now.
Yes.
I'm going to pick it a bit more on my pint. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, you feel free to fire in with your... I'm just going to...
My steak pie. Oh, it's got sauce coming out of it. This is awesome. This is what being Scottish is all about. Pies.
I'm just firing out. I'm quite hungry.
Oh, that's nice. Lovely big steak. We love a bit of beef.
I love a bit of meat, yeah. I mean, are we reviewing the earthenware as well? Because, nice vintage saucer.
Yours has got a ring on it, mine does.
Yours does. It's just on the rim, that's all.
Yeah, things on the rim.
That's a brown rim, mine has a nice ring.
Yeah, we can make lots of jokes about that.
Yeah, there's innuendo bingo this year on John Drinks, don't worry about it.
Yeah, we love it. Yeah, nice pie actually, nice and saucy, nice and meaty. Can't ask for much more. Although it's falling apart a bit, but yeah.
It's a wee bit, yeah. Mine's just a chicken curry and a pie. I mean, you can't go wrong. It's pastry and chicken curry.
Mine's just steak and wine sauce, basically.
There's wine in that thing?
I don't know. It's
what, you're
steak pie sauce.
Okay, you're triple dipping then. So you've got wine, beer, and whiskey now.
I suppose, yeah. Yeah, we should have a look at the beer then. So, Diggers 80 shilling.
When was the last time you had a cask ale?
Oh, this is cask.
Yeah. So it's the old air-powered fonts. I forget the exact. They're named after somebody who invented them, and they use air pressure as opposed to hydraulic action. Is my understanding of them. Somebody will be going mental down in the comments like that's not how they work at all. Or I'll put up a little thing saying that's not how they work. But they're pretty much unique to Edinburgh and some places in Glasgow. Nobody makes them anymore. So the ones that are currently in use are the last of their kind.
Right. I didn't know that yet, but the last time I had a cask ale, I honestly don't know. I'm not a great fan of cask ale. I actually prefer keg beer, to be honest. But that's just me. I got into beer in Germany, so I'm not a great fan of warmer.
Understandable. Okay.
But yeah, Diggers 80 shilling. doesn't say what percentage it was.
It's 4.4 according to my eyes over there.
Oh, right, that's the
Yeah.
yeah, 4.4% ABV, 80 shilling. Lovely kind of dark mahogany, chestnutty colour, I think.
Yeah, I'd go with that. It's dark brown. It's dark brown.
Nice kind of slightly ivory type colour here, maybe.
I mean, mine's mostly just a bit, but that's because I've been firing into it. One thing we've noticed as well is he's much more patient with his beers. I kind of like to get in, so that's why I never took off the beer. Yeah, it's like, yeah, that's the reason. Yeah, nothing else.
It was actually meaning that.
Well, we were all just... Yes, well, keep the innuendos coming. Anyone who has innuendo bingo this year, you can dab that one off.
But yeah, nose wise, bit of brown bread.
Yeah, it's multi-storey kind of a... it's fruit. It's malt.
I like the big blue light out there. That's how you know you're in a bad bit of Edinburgh. The blue light's just going past the window.
Oh yeah, that's it keeps you on your toes. Yeah, it's like at any moment something could happen.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, nice for me. Nice bit of brown bread, some sweet caramel, and a wee bit of a toasty brown sugar and a bit of biscuit.
Yeah, it's jam on brown bread.
Yeah, I think that's
a better way of putting it.
That's very, I mean, a little bit
sweet and malty.
Yeah, fruity side of it's a little bit kind of figgy. It's got a little bit of that light sort of figgy thing. A wee bit of maybe black currant, I think, as well. Yeah, just got a wee bit of a light black currant. The currants for me are always lighter than blackberries.
I'm not sure if I'm finding that too much. Maybe you've just got a better nose than I do.
See, I think hoppy wise, I think it's a little bit grassy, a tiny little bit earthy. Like, yeah, mainly I get a bit of grassiness out of this. But this is, you know, a Scotch ale at 80 shilling. It's mainly a big malty beer. This 4.4% is not the strongest one you're going to come across. But yeah,
well,
more a traditional beer. Yeah.
I actually covered the whole session system, the whole shilling system this time last year as a celebration for 50 years of decimalisation in the UK. It seemed the best time to do it.
I remember you.
Yeah.
I remember that.
So if you want a bit more information on kind of like why are certain beers called shilling, there'll be a little card. Oh, and I guess I'll also link his channel maybe if I'm feeling generous. I don't know. You don't need the help, to be honest.
Yeah, I've got a French Legion now.
You do. But we'll get into that a little bit later on.
But yeah, I mean,
are you going to fire it?
yeah, I was going to say, yeah, good to go. So
okay, I mean, I've been like nipping in for the past like 10 minutes. But...
It's quite nice.
You've never been more lost for words in your life. All right, I will taste it. It has kind of a crumpet with a bit of Marmite on it. Was where I was going first of all. It's got a bready, slightly sweet and savoury.
Yeah, it's like the backbone of the beer for me. Definitely a bit of bread crust. It's quite a grainy bread crust actually. So that's the middle, the back third of your palate. Yeah. Grainy bread crust. Middle third of your palate. You get a softer brown bread in there, sitting on top of it. There's a circle right in the middle of your palate too. So underneath that, it's a wee bit like Big Vicky's digested biscuit. As you move into the centre, it's a bit more of a sweet caramel. But as I say, the further you go into the aftertaste for me, it gets grainier and breadier.
Yeah, malt grains is kind of what I'm getting from that primarily. Generally with brown beers, I tend to get brown bread. I don't know if that's just a colour association thing more than anything else.
I think definitely it's the colours due to the malt, the type of malt you use, and then brown malts are going to give you more brown bready.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's got that kind of spelty, brandy kind of a flavour profile to it.
Definitely. I think. This is quite a great one. This is definitely more of a kind of traditional. Well, the percentage is really obvious. It's more like a traditional Scottish brewed Scotch ale than one of the more modern, sweet American ones. I mean, the difference for me would be the traditional Scottish ones are more grainy and bready. The American ones tend to have and the brown sugar tends to be a bit more toasted as well. The fruits are a bit drier.
A little bit more of a hop peasants creaking and like more modern takes on this style as well. Like you do still get like 80 shillings coming in that are kind of a we'll reinvent the wheel kind of a thing, sort of like remember in 2010 when they tried redesigning the Daleks again and they really fucked it up. That kind of a thing.
On the note of crazy things, there's a guy playing darts on the TV with half a blue head, half a bald head.
Oh my word!
Yeah,
That is
pretty incredible.
I like how that's the main event tonight. It's a slow night in sports.
And there's folk in the crowd. There's folk in the crowd dressed as bananas as well, which is kind of cool. So yeah.
Well, it's the Windmill World Darts Championship, and whoever this is, Emma Patton apparently.
She's very pretty.
She is here to talk about throwing sharp sticks at things today, basically. And that's her job today. Meanwhile, we're talking about beer in a pub.
So yeah, hoppy side of things.
Bring it back round.
Yeah, hoppy side of things. For me, a wee bit earthy at the back corners and palate. Come from the forward, it's got a wee bit of herbal thing. It's English hops in this, I would guess. Maybe Bramling's Cross or Kent Golding, something like that. The main thing that would make it Bramling's Cross would be the fruity side of it. But yeah, like a bit floral as you reach the front corners of the palate, a bit grassy around the front curve of your tongue. So yeah, earthy, herbal, and floral, like grassy. I think the earthiness and the grassiness come out most of me.
I'm out of my depth. I have tried. I really have tried to like do the whole identification of hops. And for some reason, I just struggle. I don't know what it is with it.
It's literally all you do. Literally, is you just try single hop beers, and then you gradually get used to it. Yeah. Now, whenever I discover a new hop, I just so if I see a new hop like Talus, for example, I went and read this is what you should get from it. And I tasted like some Talus IPAs, and then it's like, alright, this is what I actually get from it. I can see quite often actually what the brewers say or what the creator says is usually right. Actually,
It's like they've tried it and they know what they're talking about.
exactly.
Okay, alright, cool. So there's a little bit of inside information. The key to knowing things is drinking lots. All things. All things.
Everything.
Yeah. Astromycology, pie creation, furniture polishing, whatever you need to know stuff about. Thank you. Alright.
So just to round off then, fruity side of the beer and then mouthfeel.
It's a little thinner than I would expect.
Yeah.
Normally you get quite a nice creamy viscosity from a cask ale, just in general, due to the nature of it. This one's a little bit more watery. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is, maybe against what you would expect. The more you drink of it, the more the flavour kind of like becomes muddy, I would have said. I wouldn't say it's a fresh cask that's on, but it's also not,
It's not like out of date or anything.
not by any stretch of the imagination, but it wasn't just on. You know what I mean? It's had maybe a day. See, I'm impressed that you can pick out any kind of hop presence from it, really, because it's very just kind of grain rich for me.
I mean, it's not the hops can take a backseat to the grain profile, but you do get grassiness for it. Yeah, the fruits come from the hops as well.
Yeah, it's not as heavy as the style. Well, certainly as first looking at it, you would think you'd be like, we're in for something that's maybe a bit of a sit down there, but actually it's much more sessionable.
I mean, and for me, normally these are tasters. I don't session beer very much, to be honest. I'm more of a taster, as you've seen, but it's definitely more of a. It does have a wee bit of that sessionability to it. Yeah.
Which makes sense because it's a Stewart product, so they're
doing a lot of sessions.
They're doing a lot of session stuff because it sells more at the end of the day.
Especially now, that's when they need the pandemic and so on.
Exactly. You kind of want most of us kind of want to knock back a drink, for want of a better way of putting it. So it makes sense.
Yeah. Fruity wise though, I think a little bit of a light figgy kind of black curranty sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm getting like a bit close to a slightly cracked raspberry. You know, sometimes you get like a raspberry, and it's like, oh, you're a good raspberry. Sometimes you're like, you're alright, I guess.
Yeah, look, it's got a wee bit of that tartness.
Yeah.
It does have a bit of tartness and a very dry, like candy raspberry sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get that. So yeah, a wee bit of fig, wee bit of that black currant sort of thing, and then the sort of
There is a bit of bitterness beyond the finish, but I can't, identify hops in any way.
I mean, I think the bitterness, it's quite earthy, I think. English hops for me are always quite earthy and herbal, whereas the German ones are brighter.
Okay.
Or I would always say that. But yeah, it's nice. It's a nice drinkable beer. I mean, this is a traditional cask Scotch ale, chilling, whatever you want to say. But yeah, I mean, mouthfeel for me, it's mid-bodied, smooth carbonation.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Oily and slick.
You can tell it's a beer, certainly. Do we enjoy it? I tell you what, let's wrap up with, would you buy it again?
I couldn't manage a pint of it. It's a nice taster for me. But I mean, this is me. I never drink the same beer.
Fair.
Maybe Pilsner or Urquell and Life.
To be fair, you do have a lot to get through before you die, so, and as we've already covered, on borrowed time as it is.
Life expectancy of 40.
For me, 80s, I tend to drink them quite a bit as half as a half and half with a whiskey, which I feel like is a good segue onto where we should be headed next. So, moving out of your territory and into mine, that's what makes this a collab. I should move the glass so you don't have that there the whole time. So,
now we're on to the whiskey.
We've done the occasional live stream together, and you've talked about kind of like, wanting to get a little bit more into whiskeys, and I've always opened up the invitation of, well, if we ever get the opportunity, we'll do that. Today is that day, as long as your bash doesn't suddenly die, in which case, we probably had a great time. Bye. If it lasts, then start me off from the beginning. Where have you been on your whiskey journey?
I think I filmed like 5 or 6 whiskey reviews. I've tried some Japanese ones. I think I've had a Korean whiskey at one point as well. I've had Hibiki from Japan, just a few Scottish ones. I think I've got the palate for it, as I say, but I don't have the same knowledge about whiskey as I do about beer. I think that's fair. I like Sweden. My journey with beer started with rye beer, so peaty whiskies is a natural place to go.
Okay, cool.
And I have had an Ardbeg before. I have had my German friend, his wife's favourite whiskey is Ardbeg, so I have had Ardbeg before.
It's a perennial classic. Yeah. It tops polls more often than not. And polls on everything, although thank you for contributing to the poll recently, guys. It is a perennial favourite. Ardbeg do a lot of things right. 40% natural colour, non-chill filtered. It's a beautiful example of an Isla whiskey, for want of a better way of doing it. Love it or hate it, when I first tried the Ardbeg 10, it was a very rubbery, kind of stranglehold kind of whiskey. And then there was like this weird endearingness to it. I couldn't quite put my finger on it. It was unlike any other Islas that I tried before. So I'm curious to see what this one is going to be like. When I'm normally starting people out with like whiskies and stuff, like when they come through the door and they go, "Oh, I've not really tried something before. I've tried maybe 1 or 2 things." I'd ask them about like, okay, cool. What have you tried in the past? What did you like about them? If they're not really sure, I'll reel it back and be like, right, let's ignore whiskey completely. Tell me about the food you like. Are you more of a starters or a desserts person? Okay, you prefer sweet or savoury. That gives me kind of where to start. What kind of starters do you like? What kind of desserts do you like? Okay, I like something lemony, I like something sweet, I like something cloying. I'm more of a cheese board person, in which case you're like, right, okay. So we like desserts, but we're a cheese board person. Okay, grand. So it gives me some kind of like context for the kind of flavours that people will vibe with and won't vibe with. And then you might try them on a few things, and they go, I don't like this, and I go, I don't like this. If I've gone through a few perennial favourites and I'm like, okay, we'll pull out kind of the danger card, and the danger card will normally be something peated. What you normally get with that then is like, you get kind of like 10% of people that kind of like vibe with peat naturally, and then if they are one of the 10%, then they're just kind of like, yeah, love it, basically. But I would never start somebody on peat unless they already told me they liked it, because it is very much a kind of like, you either make a friend for life or you kill them off.
Oh yeah.
So that's, you know, because it's Marmite,
it's
for want of a better way of putting it.
It's definitely an acquired taste. Yeah.
One of the good things about like having rattled on for so long about a beer that you can buy basically anywhere is that we've given you some juice to breathe. Details for this, I don't know, to be honest, because I've never spent much time looking into any of the Ardbeg committee release. I know they exist, why I was able to pick them out on a menu, but the accessibility is the issue. So I thought this would be a bit of fun, kind of like, you know, trying something that you can't get readily, but we have access to it at a good price point. So, have you ever done kind of like a guided tasting before?
No, with whiskey, no, actually.
Okay, cool.
But what might be cool is I'll smell it and then you can tell me what you get as well.
Fair enough. I'll tell you what, let's go with that. So, what I would advise doing as well, as when you nose it, breathe in through your mouth. The way I was taught to do it was because that way it passes over your palate. Smell and taste are quite closely linked, so you should work quite nicely together. I'm already getting a fair bit from this just from talking.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this is going to be quite a potent one.
I think so, yeah. I mean, for me, the colour of this, I just look at the colour of this. This is definitely a wee bit more, it's a little bit more sort of ambery than some of the ones I've come across.
I mean, it's a beauty.
Yeah.
Oh, also, these guys do 35ml pours, so we're going to be here for a while, so plenty to go on.
It's pretty good, yeah, why not? But yeah, beautiful colour, actually, but definitely more ambery than some of the other ones I've tried.
On the colour scale,
Yeah.
I don't know what this tells you, if anything, nothing really, but I thought it'd be a bit of fun.
Let's nose it then. Let's
Okay.
So breathe through the mouth.
Oh, I should face it that way so we're advertising where we
So
are.
we're advertising big as yeah. Ooh, yeah. For me, it's very smooth. Obviously, there's a lot of wood in it. I find it's got a little bit of a nutty note to it. I get quite a little bit, you know, like almond, walnutty type things out of it. At the same time, it's like a kind of, it's got a real, I get quite a bit of a dry, oaky character out of this one for sure. The fruity side of things, it's like a little bit like, it's a very, very soft, dry apricot maybe. I think there's a wee bit of a citrusy one.
Getting some nosing notes, and you will be rattling off. A fair bit from it. The first thing that I was getting from this was salt and caramel, which surprised me a little bit. Because obviously you were saying it was quite fruity and dry.
Yeah, I mean, I find this one, yeah, for me, it's got a good little bit of, for me, it had quite a kind of smooth oaky character to it. And in beers, you look for, quite often when it's a Scotch barrel, the wood just comes across as being a bit drier, but in this one for me it's very smooth, so that's quite interesting, and that's what I'm getting.
For me it's got quite a saline woody note, as you're saying, you know, so I mean, the oak presence is definitely making itself known here.
Yeah. I can see the
like
sugars, definitely.
Yeah, there's a fair bit of like forest fruits in here, kind of like a bramble, raspberry, blackcurrant, kind of a medley. If I was to describe it, it's kind of like that Robinson's fruit squash, kind of a generic fruity
Fruit and barley type dilute juice.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, for me, I don't know if it's just because of how high the alcohol is, because obviously I'm not used to ABVs of 40 odd and things like this, but I find it quite almost peppery in a sense. There's a little bit of that spice to the alcohol.
Yeah, like
But
a fresh cracked black.
Yeah, that mixes in with the wood, I think, and gives the wood a bit of dryness. Yeah. But I definitely see what you mean about the brown sugar.
It's a tickle herbal. I'm getting something a little bit sage-like on there as well.
Yeah, I definitely get. I would see if I was saying that, I would have said like floral. I would have said it's a little bit sort of floral and maybe slightly citrusy on that note. It's got a little bit of that kind of florally zesty type quality. Yeah.
The more you know is that there is a fair bit of burn as well, so you can tell that there is a heft to the alcohol. I didn't even this is how unprepared I am going into this. I didn't even bother to check the ABV of this one. I suspect it's around the 50% mark. I will have a number flashing up now to indicate how strong it is. But I think, going blind, why not?
Yeah, I think fruity-wise, for me, as I was saying earlier, a wee bit of apricot, sultana type thing.
Yeah. It's vaguely reminding me of a curly whirly. It's got kind of like a caramelly, chocolatey kind of a note to it.
I can definitely see the salted caramel.
Yeah.
I can definitely see that. See, for me, always, I don't know how much bourbon you've reviewed, but I always find that bourbon, again, it's if you make the same comparison with traditional beers versus the American ones, American bourbon for me has always been sweeter than Scotch.
It's got that sweet wood kind of a character. It is kind of like taking me back a little bit to sort of like a wild turkey.
Yeah. See, I would say that for a Scotch whisky, this is one of the sweeter ones I can think of that have come across just on the nose. Yeah. But it smells lovely. It's a beautiful smelling whisky.
Well, there's only one thing to do after this, and that is to fire in.
Slanja, and thanks for having me on.
Slange. That's disturbingly easy going, first of all.
Oh, yeah. Very smooth.
You're pronouncing it wrong, it's pronounced smooth.
Smooth, okay.
Yeah.
Smart. Smart. But that's
I have things to say, but I mean, please.
I mean, my first impression of this is one of the smoothest whiskies I've tried, I would say. I'd be very curious to know what the ABV of this is, because it's just
different, to be fair. But that's the fun thing as well. Like, we're saying, oh, it's smooth, it's easy sipping. They're like, it's 95%. What are you talking about?
Probably, yeah.
Because they know. We don't know yet.
Yeah.
You have some information that we don't. This is so much fun. There is a fascinating blackberry note to it, which is coming through for me. There's a really rich kind of a sugary bramble kind of a thing. It's like if you tried making a blackberry crumble, is the best way I can think to describe it.
Oh, it definitely has a wee bit of a kind of red fruity thing. I would never pick. In a lot of ways, that I think the sweeter side of this whiskey, the sweeter side of the whiskey for me is very much what you expect from the aroma, but the fruity side of it is different, and it doesn't. I don't think in the flavour it shows quite the same sort of floral and citrusy character that you pick up. I think that's where it differs. So the wood and the kind of brown sugar for me are what I would expect, but the fruit and the kind of floral citrusy side are not as well reflected from the aroma.
Yeah. For me, there's still a fair bit of a herbal component coming through. I'm getting a little bit of spice on there. There's a little bit of a cardamom, how you get cardamom pods in. That kind of fresh green bite, and then it kind of becomes a little more peppery and kind of woodsy as it goes on. The sweetness that you get on the nose, it's a little more subdued on the flavour. I would have said personally, it's more kind of a dry barrel edge, a little bit herbal, a little bit spicy. But it's got a journey to it, which is what I'm quite liking. It's hitting a lot of different notes. It's like a toddler in front of a glockenspiel. It's hitting a lot of notes almost at random.
For me, if I think about middle of the palate, for me, that lovely smooth oaky note, I get as you come forward on the palate, I always split the beer back third, middle third, front third. So for me, that kind of middle third of your palate, that lovely smooth oaky character gets a bit drier further back on the palate, but as you come forward on the palate, for me, it's got a little teeny bit of vanilla. I do get a teeny little bit of vanilla out of this one. But then on top of that, you've got these kind of almondy, pecan, walnutty type. Maybe not walnut actually. No, maybe almondy, pecan type.
I'm absolutely getting it's like nuts in your mouth.
Some people like that.
Yeah, some people do. With Isla whiskies, particularly like peated ones, I tend to get a fair bit of like peanut. It just tends to be a character that I come through with. On this one, I'm not getting it. It's not making itself known to me. But it does have a nutty backbone. It just doesn't have that kind of like, I don't know how to describe a peanutty flavour other than to say it's peanut. You know, it's described the thing with the thing. It's the dryness that's kind of knocking me back a little bit. It's surprising more than anything else, especially after what we've noticed. I was expecting it to be much more kind of like typically caramel sweet kind of a flavour. I am surprised how easy sipping it is. I thought it might be a bit more of an aggressive one.
I think the sort of the kind of spiciness and dryness you're talking about, that comes out more into the aftertaste. For me, in the beginning, it's very, very smooth, and it starts to lean a little bit more towards the kind of sweeter side of things. But I think the sweetness comes out again. It definitely starts off sweet and smooth. The spiciness goes up, and then it comes back down, and then you start to get the spiciness is kind of around the edge of the palate. That sort of cardamom spicy thing. It's like on the edge of your palate, I think. But then in the middle of your palate, you've got like a little circle where you've got that smooth brown sugary note to the beer. Yeah. I think that to the beer, to the whiskey.
I was going to say, it's like we're in very different.
Yeah, we're in different territory. Yeah, so for me, in the middle of the palate with this one, you've got like a little oily circle. Then it's got that little bit of an almost. It's a bit too smooth to be biscuit, but it's like a digestive type flavour. It's got that light brown sugary note.
I'll see your digestive, and I will raise you a Nice biscuit. It has a. There's something I've been trying to put my finger on, and I'm gonna go out and say desiccated coconut. It's got that kind of faintly tropical, but not in like a, normally when you get like a tropical note, it's kind of like, oh, describe it to a mango or a passion fruit or something like that, it's in the same way that you would with like a double IPA or something. Also, I'm generalising here. With this one, I like coconut, so maybe a Bounty Bar, great time for me.
I can see that. I would say that definitely mixes in with the almondy, pecan-y sort of stuff. But then, for me, like that border between middle third and front third of your palate, I'd say these nutty kind of flavours are in there, including the coconut.
Yeah, and I think it's got enough of a grainy presence that gives it that kind of like a biscuity thing. So for me, melts together, makes a nice biscuit. That's kind of how I do tasting notes. I pick out two things and kind of smash them together and make it one compound noun. That's how I do it. There's probably going to be people being like, that's not how you do tasting notes at all. So
one thing I would say as well that I'm getting from it, the further into the aftertaste you go, at the dead centre of your palate, I'd say that it starts to get a little bit Werther's original, like a little bit butterscotch, butter candy, like
a little bit, yeah. If anything, I'd say it's like the chewy ones because they tend to be less sweet for me.
That's fair, yeah.
That's all I'd say about that one because the hard ones, it's like hello, sugar. But that's just me. We should talk about the peat actually. How are you finding specifically when we focus down on like the smoky elements?
It does. Ardbeg always has that wee hint of smoke underneath, but for me, the smoky side of this one comes out. If you go to the back third of your palate, I think it's there, and it gives you the dryness, and you've just got that wee. It's just got a wee hint of peat, and I find the peaty character in this one it's a little bit drier, and it's also a little bit more grassy at the same time. I think it's quite a grassy peat you get out of this. But for me, the back third of the palate for that, definitely.
It's not fusile or coaly or barbecuey in the way that many peats are. There's none of that kind of like rubbery, heavy slope, bonfire, burnt toast, any of that kind of thing. It's much more well integrated with the rest of the malt. It's much more mellow. It's a sweeter kind of peat. It's still there, but it's almost kind of like a contributing player, as opposed to kind of like what you normally get with like particularly like younger Ardbeg. It's like wow, and then the rest of the flavours kind of come through. With this one, it's more kind of like the rest of the flavours, and then the peat's kind of like, oh, I'm still here by the way, and then kind of like contributes to it all, rather than it being sort of the dominant star player. The peat itself is, like you're saying, quite dry, a little bit herbal. It does linger, but it's a very pleasant kind of like, yes, I've been drinking a piece of whiskey after 20 minutes, kind of lingering peat, as opposed to it being kind of like a...
I would say the peat almost gives it a little bit of saltiness as well.
Yeah, it's got kind of like a taliskery kind of a brine kind of a... It's a hot dog. There we go. That took a minute, but yeah, it's
got a wee bit of that, yeah, because it does, the further you go into the aftertaste, it does have a little touch of that meaty sort of thing, doesn't it? I talk about it, I love reviewing smoked beers, obviously, and for me, you've got the German Rauch malts, these ones taste like, sausage, smoked ham, the Maillard reactions you get when you cook something, whereas Scotch peat is more grassy, and I mean, yeah, it leans more towards the grassiness, but you've got a bit of that earthiness in there. But I think that the peatiness in this has that bit of salty character. Yeah.
Not to be confused with the Maillard reaction, that's when you piss off a duck.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm really like vibing with the. It's reminding me of like if you've ever tried sort of. I bring this one up quite a bit because I use it quite a bit in cooking. Smoked sole, and I also really like my peated whiskies. So the two kind of like quite a bit.
It's like fat.
Basically, yeah, it kind of is. Yeah, do it all the time.
We do share a good love of smokes. I think when we do get to do the Rauch beer
eventually,
and the peated whiskey,
one
when we do get to do that, that'll be awesome. I'm actually really looking forward to introducing John to Rauch beer. So you have to stay away from it until March, maybe.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I've avoided it so far.
Yeah.
That is a delightful, nutty, woodsy, herbal, integrated malt.
I do think we need to say some stuff about the fruitiness of it.
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird one though, isn't it? It's the more I think of it, the more kind of like odd fruit notes come out of it.
I mean,
like berries, there's a little cherry in there.
I mean, I think front third of the palate for me, I always get, this is just something I'm bringing over from beer, so apologies if this is wrong, but...
There's no right and wrong with this.
Exactly. But yeah, front third of the palate for me is where you often get the fruity parts of beer and whiskey and sake and stuff like this. And for me, yeah, I find it's got a wee bit of that sultani dried apricot, but I actually find on the front of the palate, it's almost like around the edge of the palate here, so the front of your palate is kind of shaped like this obviously, and then kind of around the edge of it, you get that cardamom spice, but you also get a bit of a florally aromaticity to it.
I haven't really been getting much in the way of like a floral note. Maybe I'm just not eating enough flowers, I don't know. But I'm normally quite good in picking out kind of like, like violet, rose, that kind of thing when they are present. Floral, for me, hasn't been making itself too present, but that's the wonderful thing about whiskey being a subjective thing. It's a subjective thing, so because I'm not picking it up, it could mean that I've got a bit too much curry on my palate.
And I mean, for me as well, it's obviously there might be a bit of placebo in there because I'm coming from the beer side of things. So when I examine the palate,
it's entirely possible. We are not going into this as like, this is part of our job. We've had a nice day, and we're going into this as like, two people coming into a pub and being absolute wankers around people just trying to enjoy the dance.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is exactly what we're doing. Who's winning, bud? Do you win at darts? What is darts?
Is it blue mohawk or pink mohawk?
I don't know. There's two people playing darts, they both got mohawks. I'm so confused.
Yeah, one of them is called, the guy with the pink mohawk is called the Red Dragon apparently. So. Yeah, I don't know. But, yeah.
Fair play to him,
Certainly.
You have to name yourself after your favourite Hannibal Lecter book.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, for me, I see what you mean. Like, it's almost like fruity-wise, as I say, at the back of that front third of your palate, it's a little, for me, it's a little bit apricot-y, sultani, but then as you come further forward, you get a bit of that berry-ish sort of thing.
If I were to ascribe it to a fruit, I'd be struggling between blackcurrants and pears. Blackcurrants has got kind of like quite a juicy. Black fruit. Yeah. Whereas pears, because it's got like a very subtle, almost watery, slightly mealy.
See, I think pears, for me, peary flavours are quite oily. I think overall this whiskey, I find this quite an oily and slick whiskey.
Yeah.
But the flavour is...
Mainly it's because it's quite a short, kind of like pipe.
Yeah, it's
kind
like
of a thing.
Yeah, it's like, this is definitely like quite, for me it's quite a silky, smoky, oily whiskey. I've not got much of a base to compare that to right enough, but first impressions, yes, it's definitely got a little bit more of a slick, oily character to it for me compared to others.
Yeah, there's a there's a fattiness to it.
Yeah.
As much as anything else. How much of that is like an association with like protein sources? It's hard to say. Although again, they don't filter it, so there is a fair bit of natural oils in there. So it makes sense that there's going to be a fair bit of viscosity. We haven't talked about legs because I don't tend to. It's just generally a way to judge, how thick it's going to be in the mouth, but you're also going to drink it. So
But it's a special whiskey, this one, so we might as well do it.
yeah, why not? So we'll swill it and then kind of see how it runs. It seems a bit redundant doing this 30 minutes in, but it's got a bit of run on it, but it's clinging to the glass pretty heftily. Kind of what I'd expect from Ardbeg, to be fair. All their estate, they look after it. You would tend to see it on whiskies that have been watered down to the maximum and then heavily chilled out, you tend to see a bit of run on them.
Yeah.
More often. Whereas, ones that have been treated with a bit more decency, I think it's fair to say, tend to cling to the glass. So it gives you an idea of, what you're dealing with. But beyond that, it's one of those things that, it looks really cool when you're doing it on Instagram. It's like, yeah, look at me. But, it doesn't tell you as much as it looks like it's telling you, if that makes sense, There's going to be people out there that disagree with me. Bring it. I'm having a nice time, so bring it on.
I'm enjoying this. Lovely. For me, this is just a lovely, silky, smooth whiskey, this one. I don't have as big I don't have as informed a point of reference as John will on this, but for me this is one of the kind of slightly thicker and more viscous ones that I've come across, but at the same time it's lovely and slick and silky. Yeah.
It's fascinating how different it is from Ardbeg's normal repertoire. If you gave this to me, I very much doubt I'd get to Ardbeg. I really do. I really think I'd struggle with that because it's a very different proposition. And that's one of the wonderful things about the committee releases. They tend to be very kind of outside the box with a lot of what they do. I'm here for it. The Black was one of their more recent ones. That was a Pinot Noir finish, which I think they do have here as well. And I haven't had a chance to try that yet, but I'm fascinated because I've had a chance to try some of the committee releases. Not bragging, it's just, opportunities been there, and they've all been you kind of have a signature with Ardbeg, and it's quite outside of where they normally focus, if that makes sense. It would be like Volsey, suddenly be like, we made a lager. You're like, I'm sorry, you did what? You'd be like, okay, I'm sure it's probably quite good, but you did what? It'd be that kind of a thing. Again, there's probably going to be people going mental at me down below. Have you tried any of the Ardbeg releases? Let us know down below in the comments. Any finishing thoughts? How does this actually rate with your experiences with whiskey so far?
I like that. It's one of the, as I said, it's one of the smoother ones I've had. It's towards the sweeter side of things for me, but I like how it has a wee bit of that, peaty, grainy backbone. I mean, Ardbeg for me gives you a bit of everything. You get a bit, for me with Ardbeg, you always get a bit of citrusy character, you get a bit of fruitiness, you get a bit of brown sugary sweetness, and you also get a bit of that peatiness. So I think for me, Ardbegs are always quite rounded, if we can call them that.
Yeah, okay. The more I'm getting on with this, the more I'm getting closer to it's getting more kind of like malty and sweet.
Yeah, I would agree.
The more that I'm drinking 100%. So it is evolving as we're drinking it. Yeah. Some of that will be us getting used to the malt, and some of that will be contact with the oxygen over time. We had this conversation at another bar that didn't even sell whiskey. Long story. Maybe I'll tell it one day. But yeah, that has been a really fantastic whiskey. I think we've spent more than enough time of you and your battery talking about it.
It's survived. It's done well.
That's jealous of your phone. It's got a little flip out thing. It's
beautiful. It's
slick. It's slick as fuck.
Without boasting more, it's a beautiful camera. It really is. You need to get one of these Asus Zenfone guys. They're beautiful. Awesome.
This video is sponsored by I wish. Can you imagine? But I'm going to box it. No, I'm not. I'm not mockbox, don't say that. I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Do please check out James's channel if you haven't already, because if that's the case again, what the hell are you doing? This man is categorical when it comes to beer, and you'll see what I mean if you watch anything of his. I'll tell you what, I'm going to ask you to pick your favourite child video you think they should check out of yours. One that you're particularly proud of,
I think probably, again, if you're just getting into the whole beer tubing thing, either the Pilsner Urquell review or the Leffe Blonde. Those are two classic beers, very easily accessible. Get one of those bottles, drink it along, and see it. Those videos are new enough that I feel I'm well informed. And yeah, as I say, two classic beers. I would say that.
Links will be down below. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Do thumb the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe, Patreon, all the rest of the blather. And I will see you guys again, where I'll be drinking something else.
Yep. And thank you for having me as well. And you'll see John on my channel at some point. As we say, our plan went a bit to shit today, but you will see John on the channel at some point. We'll do Schneiker that and a peated whiskey tasting.
Yes, I am here for it.
Death by smoke.
You're sticking here for a bit longer anyway, so it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Death by smoke.
How do you switch this off?